everyone, and welcome to part 2 of general aviation camping at Oshkosh. In my earlier video that I did, I went over more about kind of what to expect when you got there and like the facilities and how to get around. And I had some people that were asking about like what to bring and what did we wish we brought and what did we bring that we really didn't need. So that's what I'm going to be going over in this video. A lot of it's going to still come down to personal preference. So just keep that in mind. Make sure that you're doing what's going to make you comfortable. I'm going to try and go over some of the like pluses and minuses that we've had from our experience. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what makes you most comfortable. Before we get going, a couple things I want to touch on. One is I'm going to put a link below for the EAA website with the details about aircraft camping and any of their rules and regulations. So make sure before you go that you look through that so that you know any of the different rules or restrictions, and those are the most up-to-date, that's the most up-to-date place to get any of that information. The other thing is that they have announced that all children 18 and under will get free admittance to AirVenture this year. And I just want to put that out there in case any of you were maybe on the fence about going. That could be a big savings for your family if you don't have to pay for your kids to go. So just something to keep in mind. Let's get started. There are two things that you have to do the general aviation camping at Oshkosh. The first are tie downs and the second is a tent. So tie downs, you want to make sure that you get some really good ones. I don't know if any of you saw, there were some pictures last year with all the bad weather of some planes that had gotten like pulled up and moved around and damaged, and you don't want that to be you. We have been using the big screw easy tie down, and we really like them. They've worked really well. All you need to have with you is a 1-inch ratchet, and they drill down into the dirt. You don't have to worry about it. They've got great straps. We haven't had any problems, so that's just the one that I would recommend. The second thing, you could technically argue, I guess, that you don't need a tent. You could, I guess, in theory, camp in your plane. I know that a couple people did that last year, but that was more out of necessity because of all the water and mud versus desire, and they didn't really seem to enjoy it. So I'm going to stick by my previous statement, which is you have to have a tent. Now, that being said, there's all sorts of different tents that people bring. The big thing is that you have to keep it within the footprint of your aircraft. So don't be thinking like it's gonna be tailgating and you're gonna have all this stuff everywhere. You have to fit your tent into your footprint there for your plane. But there's big tents and small tents, and we went and brought a small tent before, and it was just like a little backpacking tent. And some of the pluses was that it was really small to put into the plane when we were flying up there. It wasn't very heavy, and it worked really well for just being a place where we were sleeping, and that was it. You know, it was all we needed. Some of the drawbacks we had with the smaller tent was because it was smaller, we found ourselves it wasn't really like you wanted to go hang out there because you just didn't have a lot of space. There wasn't a lot of space to put our stuff in the tent. So anything like our clothes or whatever, we were going back and forth to the plane and opening it up to go and get our things out of our bags that we were keeping locked up in there instead of in the tent. So that just was a little bit, it's not a problem, but it's just something that just kind of got a little bit annoying. Like, where are the keys? Go get the plane, and get everything out of there. And the other thing was just like getting changed. If you're in a short, small little tent, especially with two people kind of trying to finagle around and get dressed or get changed in the morning. Whereas if you're like out in the woods, you might just step out of your tent because you're by yourself and get dressed. You are not by yourself here. So that's not an option. Just, again, it was just something that we found. Last year, we got a much bigger tent, a lot bigger. And we got it much bigger because it's not just for Oshkosh, it's for like going camping with friends or with our dogs. And so we got a North Face Wawona 6 tent. And that one, again, some of the pluses and minuses. The good thing with it was that one of the things I really loved was that it had a vestibule. And so we had a spot then where we could have things like a cooler, our dirty shoes, our quad chairs, or we could keep them stored inside, like in the tent, in the vestibule, without having them in the sleeping area. Again, it was really nice having all the space, because just being able to kind of get up, get dressed, and also have some space to spread out a little bit, just to be a little bit more comfortable. So on a day like where it rains and you might get stuck going back to your tent, it was comfortable. So it was just really nice to have that extra space. It was a lot more than we needed for just the two of us, but it was really nice having just the extra space. And we had enough space to put all of our stuff, like our bags and everything, in the tent. So we didn't have to keep doing that thing of going back and forth to the plane to get clothes or whatever. All of our stuff was right there, easily accessible. Once we kind of unpacked the plane and put everything in the tent, we were good to go. So that was nice to have all those different things. A couple of the drawbacks with the bigger tent is that this particular one, it was a lot bigger than, not like the tent like when it's all packed up. So the actual little bag and everything it was in was a lot bigger and a lot heavier. And so that's something where if perhaps you're worried about like weight and balance when you're planning your flight to go up there, just something to keep in mind with that. Again, there's people who use all sorts of different sizes. This was just our experience with it. So it's just a couple of the things that we liked and didn't like. Ultimately, it's up to you to figure out what's going to make you most comfortable. The biggest thing, no matter what tent you choose, is to make sure it's waterproof. It does rain, and the last thing you want to have happen is to wake up all soggy and wet and with your stuff wet or anything, God forbid, destroyed. So just make sure that it's a really good waterproof tent. And I would probably recommend bringing a tarp also. We have just like a big plastic tarp that we'll bring with us to put down underneath the tent. So for example, last year, again, with all of the bad weather and it being so wet, it was really nice to just have the tarp that we could then lay down and not have to worry about, is the tent gonna get wet? Is it gonna get muddy? Is it gonna seep through? You just didn't have to worry about it. You didn't have to worry about it at all because you had a tarp there underneath. So that worked out really nicely. I'm not gonna really go into sleeping bags because I just don't think that's something really to necessarily get into. What I will say are a couple things. One, I would make sure whatever you get that you look at the temperature rating for it, just because it can get cold there at night. And so I would want something that has, that's got a temperature rating that's gonna keep you warmer as it gets colder, because if you're too hot, you can always unzip the sleeping bag to cool off. But if you're cold, you can't somehow just like make your sleeping bag warmer. The other thing is that there are people who I've seen where they'll actually bring an inflatable mattress. So if you do have one of those bigger tents and you're staying for the week, you could go and then blow up like a queen size mattress and put it there in the tent. Just something to consider. I mean, I haven't done it, but it was kind of a neat thing to see that there were people who did that. Just an option to consider perhaps. Our first year that we went to Oshkosh, we had brought a lot of cooking gear with us, thinking that we would be spending our time cooking there at the campsite, having breakfast, having dinner, or whatnot. And we ended up using precisely 0 of our cooking gear. It for us is more of a vacation going to Oshkosh. It's really fun time. And we just didn't want to spend our time going back and forth to the grocery store to buy stuff or cooking and cleaning. It was just more fun to us to kind of go around and explore some of the different places there that we could just enjoy our time and eat and not have to worry about any of the cleanup. But there are people we've seen who, there was a lovely father and son that was next to us last year, and I think they cooked every single meal there together at the tent. And there's other big groups where they'll make this huge like breakfast that they'll do together out there. And it's, for some people, like that's what you want. For us personally, it wasn't. I would just kind of keep that in mind. Think about, if what you want is to be there cooking and hanging out with the people around you, awesome, then bring cooking gear. If you really are thinking you're probably just gonna wanna enjoy your time there, then don't bring your cooking gear. Just something to keep in mind. While we're on the topic of like food, something that we have found to be really great to have is a cooler. Now you could either bring one with you, or they do sell them there at the gas station I mentioned in my previous video. And it's really nice to have. We found having like different drinks, we'd get Gatorades or beer or water or whatever, and be able to put it there in the cooler, and then every night or every other night we'd go and buy a bag of ice and dump it in there. It was just really nice to, wake up in the morning and I had fruit juice that was already in there and already cold, or we came back from a long day and we had cold Gatorade, or to have cold Gatorade that we could put into our bag to take onto the grounds while we walked around, or to have a cold beer when you get back to your tent after everything. So it was just one of those nice little things. And again, with our little vestibule that we had in the new tent, having it out there, it just worked out really well, and it was really nice. It's something to consider, to just have some drinks or whatnot there available. Switching gears back to camping gear, something that we really like, and a lot of people we've seen have them, are the quad chairs or the captain chairs, or whatever you want to call them. The ones that collapse down and you unfold them. They're really nice to have, not only for out at the campsite where you can sit around and talk to other people who are there with you and enjoy your time. We actually went out one year and sat by our tent to watch the night show, just because it was fun to not have to worry about trying to get the bus back and forth afterwards. But you can also take them into the AirVenture grounds. And so that's really nice to have, where you can go and pick a spot there in the grass along the flight line to set up your chairs, to watch the show. There's other venues there around the grounds where you can bring your chair with you to watch guest speakers or the movie night or whatnot. So it's just something nice that you can take around and use quite a bit with while you're there. So something to possibly consider would be to have something like the camping or the quad chairs. Something else that you might want to have for around the tent, around the campsite there, would be a flashlight or maybe a headlamp, because when it gets dark, there's not really a lot of lighting there out in the camping out in the North 40, and I don't think there's a lot out in the South 40 either. So just having something like a flashlight or a headlamp. You could use your phone, but I mean, again, you don't have a charger necessarily in your tent, so being able to save your phone battery and not having to worry about using it as a flashlight too, just something you might want to have as an extra light to go beyond your cell phone. Quick dry towels are another thing I would recommend. You can get them on Amazon pretty cheap. I'll put a link below to the ones we got, but there's all sorts of different colors. The big thing is that they do dry very fast. They help dry you off very quickly, and it's just really nice versus having perhaps just like your regular cotton towel. Since they dry fast, it's not something that you have to worry about. Is it going to dry overnight? Is it going to dry while I'm out and about? When we would come back from the shower, we throw it over the horizontal stabilizer there at the back of the plane, and by the time we've gotten dressed and ready to go, it's dry. We can fold it up and throw it into the tent. So it just makes it kind of nice. Another thing with kind of that goes with the towels would be flip-flops that I would take to wear to go back and forth to the shower, or to wear in the shower. Just something, nice and easy. It doesn't take a lot of weight, but it's something nice to have kind of going back and forth to the showers and in the showers. Something else that might be useful would be perhaps either like a solar charger or a charge-all, like a battery charger that you can plug in somewhere, like say while you're at dinner or while you're listening to some speaker or whatnot, that you can have as like a battery backup to then use while you're in the tent at night to help charge up your phone or any other devices like your camera. So a solar charger is something you could perhaps leave in the plane while you're out and about that will charge up for you while you're gone, and then you have something to not have to worry about plugging in your phone. They do have some charging stations and everything around parts of the grounds or the camping. There are outlets around the fixed bathroom areas where they have the showers and whatnot. So you do have places where you could go and charge in. It's just something kind of nice. We would take one of those little battery backups when we go to dinner and then plug it in at the restaurant. And so that way, by the time we were done and we'd head back to the tent, it was already all charged up and we had it good to go for the night to charge both of our cell phones. So just something you might think about having. Makes it a little bit more convenient. All right, so now that I've covered a lot about what you'd want at your campsite, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit in terms of what you might wanna bring to actually have while you're there on the grounds to use and to get around with. You want sunblock. Sunblock, sunblock, sunblock. It's outside, bright, sunny, and you need sunblock. You will burn, you will scorch if you don't have it. Make sure to bring some good sunblock with you. While we're talking about sun and all the sun you're gonna be exposed to, you'll wanna have some sunglasses and a hat to just help protect you throughout the day. The good news is that there's a lot of organizations that give away hats. Like AOPA, they'll have hats to give away to their members, but you can also buy them there, and if you don't bring one, or you can have it as a little souvenir to bring. But a hat and sunglasses are really nice to have, again, with all the sun beating down on you for the week. Another thing that you'll want is bug spray. Not so much during the day, but at night, once the sun starts to go down, I don't know what those little critters are, but they bite and they hurt. So I would just bring some bug spray that you could spray on, like before you go to the night air show, or if you're just walking around or sitting out in front of your tent in the evenings after the sun's gone down, bring some bug spray. You will want good walking shoes. This is not the place to try out a brand new pair of shoes. It's huge, this whole space. It's incredible, but you will be doing a lot of walking. So you want to have really good, comfortable shoes that you're going to be fine walking in, standing in for long periods. So don't bring that brand new pair. Make sure you've got some nice walking shoes that you're comfortable with. A good backpack. That is something I would recommend. It doesn't necessarily have to be big, but I would bring a backpack to take with you every day when you go to the AirVenture grounds. It is not particularly close. It's not just a short walk to get out to your campsite from the AirVenture grounds. And so once you leave, it becomes kind of a little bit of a hassle. It's not impossible, but you're gonna end up spending a lot of time if you try and plan to go back and forth to your tent throughout the day. Whereas if you have a backpack that you can carry any camera gear or whatnot that you might want going into the evening, water bottles, it's just really nice to have that. You just really don't want to end up having to go back and forth, because if you're, say, anywhere in the main grounds, you're going to end up then taking a shuttle to get back to the main entrance there on the North 40, and then you're going to have to take another shuttle to go out and get to wherever your campsite is. And it's not like they're all necessarily just going to be there right away waiting for you, and you might have to wait for a couple of the shuttles to go by before you can get on, or you can walk it, but still it's going to take a lot of time anyway if you're walking it. And it's just something I would think about. You really don't want to have to worry about going back and forth between your campsite and the AirVenture grounds once you leave in the morning. They do have, for those of you with kids, they have these carts that you can rent. I think they're Wagons. And I've seen people where like they can put the kids in them and pull them around. I guess you could bring a stroller too if you wanted to take that. But it's really nice because you can rent them. I don't know a lot of the details. We've never done it, but for some of these like bigger families or groups that meet there, I've seen them where they'll go and they might fill up a big, like one of those big thermos containers with ice and a little bit of water, and then carry it throughout the day. And so then they have water or lemonade or something that they can keep in one of these big thermoses in the wagon. And again, it avoids having to, I guess, keep the backpack. It's a place where they can keep snacks for the kids, or if they have a lot of camera equipment or whatever. So again, I don't know how much it costs, but I know that the tent where you can go and rent them is just outside of the main entrance by where the big bus terminal is. So that's something that you can consider and possibly check out if it's something you're interested in that might help you if you've got, again, a big family or a lot of stuff that you might be carrying and you don't want to have to worry about a backpack. I mentioned water bottles just a second ago. It's really great. They have a lot of like water fountains or like the little portable water stations out by the campgrounds. They have even like the really nice ones in some of the permanent buildings there where it even has little water bottle filler. But they do have a lot of water fountains out and available that you can use. And so if you bring perhaps a good Nalgene bottle, you can throw that in your backpack and you don't have to worry about then buying water or having to wait in line to buy water anytime that you're thirsty, or having to always just find a water fountain whenever you're thirsty. You can just fill up the water bottle and take it with you. We also like to take a small padded, like a soft wall cooler that we'll throw into our backpack. It's nothing very big, but as I mentioned, keeping like the Gatorades cold in the cooler, we'll take a couple of the cold Gatorades and throw them into that little soft wall cooler and throw it into our backpack to then have them to drink while we're going through the day, again, instead of having to worry about buying them. It's also a lot cheaper to go to the gas station and buy them and then carry them ourselves versus buying the ones there. I think like half the price. So if you don't want to have to worry about carrying anything, by all means, go and just, buy it while you're there. But we just wanted to, it was an easy place to save some cash. It's just to carry our own Gatorades around, and they let you. So that just something else if you want to have something besides water. You might want to think about bringing a poncho or an umbrella. It does rain. We haven't experienced it yet where it's rained like several different days throughout the actual week. Obviously last year, the weekend before was crazy, but I think it only rained like one day during the whole week that AirVenture was actually taking place. At the time for us, we just went and ran underneath one of the vendor tents and hung out there for a little while. It wasn't raining a lot, so it didn't really bother us, but you can have it where it rains heavier. So how much do you mind getting wet? How heavy is it raining? Do you just want to hang out inside somewhere? It's just, you could, if you really don't want to be wet, if you hate getting wet, you might just bring one of those little tiny ponchos again that you could throw in the backpack, or an umbrella that you could throw in your little backpack and carry around just in case it calls for rain that day. A sweatshirt or a light jacket is also something you would probably want to bring. Again, it does tend to get cooler in the evening, some more so than others, and it's just really nice to have that you can throw on when you, again, are going to the night show or hanging out by your tent. Just, it gets a little bit cooler, just something to keep in mind. It's really nice during the day and t-shirt and shorts the whole time, but in the evening it can get a little bit cooler, so maybe a sweatshirt or a light jacket. Out there on the flight line, there's also not a lot of shade. There are some trees, there are some planes like where you could go and sit under the wings in the shade there, but out actually by the flight line, say if you want to watch the whole air show and put your captain's chair out there and watch and enjoy it, there's really not a lot of shade. And if that's something that you're concerned about, you might want to bring perhaps an umbrella that you could use for shade. So something that you could set up and have a nice spot there picked out underneath your camping chair just to help protect you from the sun. Because the afternoon air shows are, I think, about 4 hours long. And so if you're just gonna be sitting out there baking, it might be nice to have some sort of an umbrella for a little bit of sun protection. There are some spots where, like out in the big main pavilion, and they've got all the military aircraft, you'll see people that are sitting there in the shade under, a C-130 or a C-17, and even out where they have some of the other home-built planes displayed, on the high wing ones, you can see people that will sit in the shade underneath the wings, and there are a couple of trees. But if you just really want to make sure not to have to worry about it, because the spots out on the flight line and the grass where there's shade, those get occupied quickly because people don't want to sit out baking in the sun. If you just don't want to have to worry about that, if it's really important to you to make sure you have some shade while you're out there watching the air shows, just maybe bring a big umbrella. The last thing I think I'm going to recommend would be extra space. It's fun. It's so great at Oshkosh. You're going to get freebies. You're going to probably want to buy stuff, souvenirs, things to bring with you and take home. So just make sure that you've allowed for some extra space and extra weight in the plane. Now, if for bigger purchases, a lot of the vendors arrange something where they'll do the shipping and get it to you, so you don't have to obviously take some of these bigger, heavier, bulkier items. Like they sell art and whatnot there. So you can arrange shipping, but for just some of the smaller things, like if you end up buying a ton of t-shirts or whatnot, just to have the space to put them in to get everything home with you. I think that kind of sums up most of the biggest things and most important things that I can think about. Again, obviously a lot of this is coming down to personal preference or what are you most concerned about, and just make sure you pick what's going to make you happy. You don't have to take my suggestions. You just need to try and do what's going to make you most happy and get the most out of your camping experience there. If you're on the fence, I really recommend it. It's really, really fun. At least try it once. I love it. It's such a fun experience. I love being out there on the flight line. I love waking up with the sound of all the planes. So I hope this information was helpful. Again, I'll put some links below for a couple of the things that I mentioned, as well as for the aircraft camping rules from EAA, so that you can check those out. If you like my t-shirt with the I Survived Fisk VFR Arrival, that is available on my website, which I will link below, as well as some other designs. And if you have any questions, or if you have suggestions, if there's something you think that I left out, please be sure to leave it in the comments below to help out others who are watching, or alternate perspectives on some of the stuff that I've mentioned. Please leave a comment down below to help everybody out. So it's always great to get more input from more people. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it to be helpful. If you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this about Oshkosh, as well as to follow along as I build an RV tent with my husband in our garage. Hopefully I'll run into you camping at Oshkosh this year.